Welcome to Prime Life. We call it Retirement 2.0. Leave each episode with tips and new ideas to help you navigate retirement in our new age. It's your time. Make it count.
Welcome back to the Prime Life podcast, where we explore the ideas, innovations, and people shaping the future of longevity. If you're interested in the future of how to save for retirement, longevity, innovation, and building solutions that truly move people where they are, then this is an episode you won't want to miss. I'm Mary Crean. Today we're joined by Tom Stevens, CEO and co-founder of Tombot. Tombot makes pets for people who can't have pets, creating lifelike companion animals that bring comfort and connection to those that need it most. Tom, thanks for being here. Tell our audience a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Mary. Thank you so much for having me. This is exciting to be here. So I'm Tom Stevens. I'm CEO and co-founder of Tombot. My background is I've been in high tech my whole career. My two Tombot co-founders and I built a prior startup into one of the world's largest litigation automation companies. We had about 1,500 employees and contractors, clients and operations on 3 continents. And we were successfully acquired, which gave me the freedom to think about other things. Unfortunately, that same year, my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia, and she gave me my new purpose.
Tom, that's such a heartbreaking story. I'm sorry to hear that about your mom, but what you did was you took that situation and you turned it into an amazing new venture that I know is helping so many people. And I'm going to be smiling probably throughout this entire podcast because I see Jennie sitting next to you. And you know, Tom, we use audio and video with Prime Life Podcast. And I've met Jennie in person when we were at Medicarians. I kept wanting to pet her, and she's just adorable. And I'm amazed because she's so lifelike. And can you tell us a little bit more about that, why you developed it? I know you shared that about your mom, but tell us a little bit more about how that inspiration started for you.
Absolutely. So when my mother was diagnosed with Alzheimer's dementia, I had to take over her life, making a number of really tough decisions on her behalf. By far the worst was realizing I had to take away her dog for safety reasons. She was quite unhappy with me. I looked around for substitutes for live animal companions. She didn't like anything that I brought home, and I realized then that there might be a large unmet need. That launched me on what became a multi-year research and education journey, culminating in a master's degree from Stanford University. And along the way, I learned that my mom's story is shared by over 300 million seniors with dementia or pre-dementia mild cognitive impairment in about half the planet. About 1 billion of the 2 billion households don't keep live animals as pets for reasons including health adversity, cost, burden of care, and living restrictions. And so we launched Tombot to be in service to those people. Our first product, Jennie, is designed specifically for dementia. Seniors with dementia suffer from something called behavioral and psychological symptoms, which include loneliness, anxiety, depression, delirium. In my mother's case, hallucinations and violent anger. To manage these symptoms, doctors historically have relied upon psychotropic medications. These are anti-anxiety, antidepressant, antipsychotic medications. And while you or I would likely tolerate these medications without too much trouble, they're very hard on the elderly, so much so that the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services now prohibit their use in long-term care under most circumstances. This is a very well-researched area. Dozens of peer-reviewed studies going back as many as 40 years show that where a senior with dementia, like my mother, can form a robust emotional attachment to an object. Traditionally, those objects have been human baby dolls or stuffed animals. Those seniors get a great deal of relief from their symptoms and a corresponding reduction in need for the psychotropics. Problem, however, most seniors are like my mother, and they don't care for those traditional objects. Research on robotic animals show they significantly outperform the traditional objects and have the added benefit of reducing pain and the need for pain medications. The problem there, however, is existing technologies are either simple children's toys, which have been rebranded for seniors, and once the novelty effect wears off, most lose interest in them. Or on the other end of the spectrum are prohibitively expensive robots. This whole space was invented in the early 2000s by a Japanese research institute. They created a robotic seal by the name of Paro, P-A-R-O. Paro is a good robot, but it costs over $6,000. Most senior care facilities can't justify one, let alone individuals like my mother who need one for themselves in order to form that emotional bond. And so I was armed with this information when at Stanford, and one of the things I wanted to understand was why these objects worked in the first place. And what I've come to learn is that through emotional attachment, it stimulates positive changes in the brain's neurochemistry. And while it's a complex cocktail of neurochemicals, including dopamine, serotonin, endorphins, what's thought to be hardest at work is oxytocin. Oxytocin is known to reduce stress and anxiety, and it's a highly effective pain reliever because it interacts with our own internal opioid system. And so our mission to the company was actually not to develop a robotic puppy, but to develop a better emotional attachment object, one that stimulates enduring emotional attachment, but would also be available at a price that many people can afford, even while we're still working on getting healthcare insurance reimbursements in place. We conducted multiple rounds of formal studies with over 700 seniors with dementia. We teamed up with Georgia Tech and the University of Illinois to help us with our methodologies. And we learned a great deal from that research. But the biggest takeaways were around realism. Realism, first of all, in objects with which the seniors are already familiar. So puppies and kittens, as opposed to wild animals or fictitious creatures like humanoids or abstract characters. And then secondly, the more realistic, the better. Realism in appearance, in texture, and most importantly, realism in behaviors. We teamed up with Jim Henson's Creature Shop to do our artistic design. We like to say that Jennie is Kermit the Frog's youngest sister. And with their help, we're building what we believe to be the world's most realistic robotic animals. They're scientifically designed to stimulate emotional attachment. And then once in place, we become a unique platform for monitoring those seniors for safety and health.
So talk a little bit about that. And it sounds like this is going the route of FDA approval. So I've only heard, I don't know for sure, but that must not be an easy road to go down.
Well, FDA is not easy, but it's very important to us. So we're a mission-based company. There are a lot of people that need help, particularly with symptoms like anxiety, depression, PTSD, and so forth. In order to make sure that we're helping them, this has to be grounded in real science. It can't just, hey, here's something, let's see if it works. And so we're very much scientific process oriented, and you use that evidence for relationship with the FDA. Now, with our first product, we're lucky in that it's classified as what's called a 510K exempt, meaning we don't need to do clinical studies before we start marketing the product, but we have to be compliant with all the FDA safety certifications. So as the IEC, electronic medical device safety certifications, to make sure that the product is safe to use. We also have to be compliant with quality control, auditability, follow up on things like customer complaints and things of that sort. It's all very formal, all very regulated. And so it's not an easy thing, but it's necessary, in our opinion, to do that in order to assure ourselves and the users that we're doing our very best to deliver a product that's going to provide a therapeutic benefit.
So what kind of monitoring can Jennie do? Because I know you alluded to that earlier, which actually I did not know that. I know, again, when you and I met a couple months ago, I'm not sure we got to talk about that.
There's always so much to talk about. So yes, version 1.0 of our monitoring is for monitoring for sundowning syndrome. Sundowning is where the senior with dementia late in the day gets especially confused and disoriented. Despite it being common, it's very poorly understood, which means that treatment has to be provided on a trial and error basis. We'll be the first device of any kind that provides objective information back to the caregiver and the medical provider so they can make adjustments in lifestyle or in medication dosages, timing of administration, all with the goal of getting even emotional and cognitive levels throughout the day. So that's version 1.0. We see this going in the future is greatly expanding on the safety and health monitoring that we can provide. So, for example, with a senior with dementia, they're fully disabled, which means that they need care 24/7. But someone who might have Alzheimer's, as an example, could be in a pre-dementia state. They could be living independently still. They could be living alone, not with a spouse or and perhaps as a child of that person, you get to see them perhaps as much as you'd like to, and you worry about having understanding of how they're doing would be really important. Are they sitting for long periods of time? Are they laying on the floor? Are they going to the bathroom every 10 minutes? Are they never going to the kitchen and eating? Has there been a change in their facial affectation, their walking gait? And then basic health biometrics such as heart rate, heart arrhythmias, blood oxygen saturation levels, blood pressure, and so forth, to try to give a more comprehensive picture to the medical providers when the loved ones aren't there to really observe. One of the biggest challenges I had very early on with my mother was that she lost her ability to act as her own patient advocate with a doctor. I would take her to a doctor visit. Doctor would ask Nancy, my mom's name is Nancy, said, Nancy, how have you been since the last time I saw you? And my mom would say, fine. And I knew that she'd been anything but fine. She had fallen a couple of times. She had a UTI. That wasn't in her mind anymore. And every minute of the day to know really exactly what was happening with her. And so all I could do is give very broad generalizations to the doctor, which does not make it easy to treat them. And also not trained as a caregiver. 83% of seniors with dementia live at home and are cared for by an unpaid family member. Well, we aren't trained in caregiving for the most part. We didn't anticipate this. Maybe we didn't want this, but this was thrust upon us. And anything that we can do to make that caregiver's life easier and support them in having better health outcomes and better quality of life for their loved one is going to make their life better too.
It seems like other populations can benefit from a pup like Jennie. Have you thought about that?
And we'll get that answer after a brief word from our commercial sponsors.
NASA is always working harder to be your carrier of choice. We offer insurance products that can help you meet your retirement goals, such as protecting your savings, securing lifetime income, or paying for healthcare costs. We're dedicated to providing best-in-class service and are keeping things simple, and we'll have your back. We have around 400,000 policyholders and contract holders and have been doing this for a long time, 170 years, but we remain humble enough to always try to improve. For more information, visit nfg.com. Nassau insurance products are issued by Nassau Life and Annuity Company of Hartford, Connecticut, Nassau Life Insurance Company, East Greenbush, New York, or Nassau Life Insurance Company of Kansas, Overland Park, Kansas. Subsidiaries of Nassau Financial Group. Products are not available in all areas. Policyholder counts are for all Nassau companies as of September 30th, 2022, and are subject to change.
It's an interesting question. It was not something that we anticipated, but despite the fact that Jennie was developed specifically for dementia and people with pre-dementia, mild cognitive impairment, 71% of our now more than 24,000 pre-order waitlist customers are ordering her for a different reason. So level 2, level 3 autism, intellectual developmental disabilities, Down syndrome, traumatic brain injury, stroke. People who are physically healthy but suffer from severe anxiety, depression, PTSD, bipolar, schizophrenia, and people who are otherwise healthy but live alone and are at risk of social isolation and severe loneliness. So there are a lot of people out there that we want to help. We'll continue to develop products that are designed to stimulate the same levels of emotional attachment for people with some sort of cognitive limitation for people with cognitively too.
Well, I love that. What do you see as the future for Tombot?
I think so first of all, we are a small startup company, so everything is about the future. We're lucky that we've got about 100,000 robots that are back ordered, and those orders come from 116 countries. Well, the first challenge is from a business perspective. Is like, how do we scale the business to handle all that? And fortunately, we're fairly well funded, and so we've got the financial resources to do it. But there's never been a product like this before, and so we're learning every step along the way. So scaling the business is a big challenge. We're about 22 full-time people today, plus outside contractors. We'll be about 160 people this time next year. We'll ultimately expand to capture the international business, and then of course we'll expand the products that we offer. We're likely to stay with puppies and kittens since those are so familiar to us. But if there's enough demand for a dragon that people can ride, we'll look at those things too.
I love that. Any final insights that you may have to share with our audience?
Well, I guess a couple of things. First of all, she is eligible for HSA and FSA accounts. So if you're taking care of a loved one with dementia or another disability, and you have an account like an FSA account, you can use pre-tax dollars to purchase her. So that's a good thing. We hope to have insurance reimbursements for both in-hospital and then at-home use in place in the next couple of years. It'll probably take a couple more years for that to happen. And then, our first shipments will be this fall. And so if people are interested in learning more about our puppies, we'd love to meet them and get them on our waiting list.
Tom, what's the best way if someone wants to get in touch with you? What's the best way? We're going to put everything in the show notes.
Sure. The easiest thing is to go to our website, which is tombot.com, Tombot. I can't spell my own name. Tombot.com. And just by going to our website, you'll be prompted to join a wait list. There's no obligation. You can cancel at any time, but that gets you on our flow of information. At this point, we're putting out weekly emails to our customer base to help them understand where we are as we approach our first customer shipments, as well as just sharing fun things as they develop. Fortunately for people with people like yourself, Mary, she's been popular in the media. And so it's always fun to share that she was on the Today Show or something of that sort.
Yeah, so she's precious. I'm not going to lie. She's precious. So Tom, as we close our conversation, and again, I really appreciate you spending time with me again. We met at Medicarians and you were so delightful to speak to. And I had to have you back just on an episode of your own. We always ask our guests a final question. You have a very interesting career. You've been highly successful, well-educated. Why do you get up every day and do what you do at this point? What's your why?
Yeah, so one of the interesting courses I took at Stanford as a grad student was called Rethinking Purpose. And one of the things they talked about in that class was people who pursue happiness generally never achieve it, but people who pursue purpose do. And I realized that in my life, it's in my life experience, we're never really living in isolation. At least I hope nobody's living in true isolation, and that we're always in service to somebody other than ourselves. What my financial result was from our company simply was allowing me to choose who I was in service to. And it was initially my mother, and then people a lot like my mother, and then only to learn that there's just a great many people out there that need help. We love this company, we love the technology, but more than that, we love the people with whom we're doing that. I did a talk a couple of weeks ago in Ohio to the state board servicing developmentally disabled people. What a wonderful opportunity in my life to not be dealing with lawyers and trying to figure out how to save money on lawyers' bills, but rather out to the people who are really doing work that we don't hear about every day, we don't really think about every day, but it's a tremendous number of people that depend on a daily basis for that kind of support. And to think that we could be a part of enriching somebody's life that we hadn't met before is really why we get up every morning and do this.
I love that. And again, thank you for joining me today on the Prime Life podcast. And to our audience, we hope you'll keep listening. Tell us what you love. Tell us what you don't love. And we hope everyone has a wonderful day. And I think we will have a better day since we've spent some time with Jennie, but also Tom today. Thank you, Tom.
Thank you so much.